Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are in the wrap-up interview session in Singapore during the Asia PCR 2017. I'm Rosli from the National Heart Institute, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. With me is our Dr. Peter Stella from Utrecht, Holland, and also Dr. Jack Tan from Singapore. So let me ask the first question to Dr. Peter Stella. Peter, there are so many drug-eluting stents nowadays, the second and third, and so-called even the fourth generation drug-eluting stents. Do you think that one DES differs from another?
Thank you. I think there's a difference in DES. I think in what we've learned over the past years is that the latest generation DES in common has much more efficacy than the first generation, especially if you compare to the bare metal stents that we were using 15 years ago. So in general, efficacy is better. However, there are still unmet needs in certain populations, such as diabetics, elderly patients, patients with bleeding risks. And if you look carefully into the data of those patients in all the latest generation DES, the results are not so great. So there's still a high late loss in diabetic patients. There's a bleeding risk. We've got rid of the stent thrombosis by prolonging the ABT, but this comes as a cost. So there is an unmet need still in a certain population, especially in diabetics, which is a high number here in Asia, and in the fragile patients.
Right. Jack, to expand on what Peter just said about the unmet needs, in particular the diabetics, how do you see the Cre8 polymer-free and polymerless drug-eluting stents in terms of trying to overcome the problems in treatment of patients who are diabetics?
So thanks, Rosli, for the question. I think in this region, particularly in Southeast Asia, in my country as well as Malaysia, our PCI subgroup, the percentage of diabetes in Singapore is 43% and 45% in Malaysia, and higher in Brunei. Especially in the subgroup of ACS, the younger patients, this percentage goes to 70%, which is a terrible phenomenon. And this pandemic has come across Asia, Middle East, and across the world, across the globe, but more acutely felt in my region. So there's really a huge cohort of patients. Every other PCI I'm doing is in the diabetic patients. And we know that this diabetic subgroup tends to have more events, more intimal neoarthrosclerosis, and more target lesion failure, and more lesions as well. So going back to the Cre8 technology, I think just a quick summary of what the Cre8 technology is trying to achieve. It's a very innovative technology with a reservoir technology on the abdominal side, combining proprietary amphibious drug, which is a sirolimus compound bounded with a fatty acid captured inside the reservoir in a controlled release kinetic. There's a physical release kinetic from the abdominal side over 2 to 3 months. And this release kinetic is especially important due to the formulation for diabetic cells. I think diabetic cells are particularly resistant to sirolimus compounds, and usually you need about 10 times higher concentration within the cell to retard intimal hyperplasia. So in this case, this formulation potentially aids absorption of sirolimus compound because of the fatty acid binding into a diabetic cell, and therefore concentrate the drug concentration where it's most needed. I think some of the earlier studies that were made surprisingly showed, comparing the leading class stents like designed in the reservoir study and the early pilot studies comparing against Texas. Surprisingly, in the diabetic group, the late loss is better than even the non-diabetic group, and is clearly superior to leading class stents like designs in terms of a late loss of less than 0.2 consistently. So I think it's promising, and we are hopeful for better, more larger studies to be done.
Peter, Jack has stated about the efficacy, and we now understand that when we look at a device like a drug-eluting stents, we don't just look at efficacy, but we also look at safety. What do you think are the features in Cre8 that also helps to increase its safety and therefore overall benefits of a drug-eluting stents?
I think you touch a very important point there. You have to have a combination of both to have a very effective stent. So the Cre8 has been shown to be very efficacious already in the diabetic subpopulation. We've learned from several trials already that they have very good results there. However, good results don't mean anything if you have a less of a safety profile. So this is another thing that we try to demonstrate in a study which was called to demonstrate, is that we investigated by OCT the endothelial coverage of the Cre8 at 3 months versus a well-known bare metal stent, the multi-link fission, at 1 month follow-up. And this showed that the endothelial coverage was exactly the same, even a little better than the bare metal stent at 3 months. So this has shown already safety. There's a lot of registry data already as well, where it has shown that this efficacy is adjacent to the safety. So demonstrate and our own clinical data, a Euro short study where we looked again at reduced DAPT in a difficult lesion subset, diabetic patients, which shows no stent thrombosis, no bleeding risk as 1 year follow-up. So data so far has shown that the Cre8 has the combination of efficacy and safety which allows you, if you want to, in high bleeding risk patients, to reduce DAPT. And finally, is to really prove this concept. We are currently doing a study which is called the Cre8, comparing the Cre8 versus the resolute integrity. And in elective patients, we will then reduce DAPT to just 4 weeks and follow these patients up to 3 years clinical follow-up to see if these promising results of the earlier trials and registry are really there.
Okay. Good. Jack, there have been some data that has been presented in this Asia PCR. Do you think that with the data that is currently available, that this new technology, with Cre8, will be able to raise the performance of DES to much higher levels, especially in patients who are diabetic?
I think we are looking forward to the latest trial that the company is trying to do. I think in terms of diabetic subgroup, it's a challenge for all stents currently. If you look at how the company has evolved its earlier studies from the first next study, which randomized against Texas, and it shows superiority in the diabetic subgroup, and in the reservoir study, which randomized against Zymes. A bit small numbers, but it clearly shows better efficacy in the diabetic subgroup compared to the competitor stents. And the latest diabetic study is a larger randomized trial led by Antonio as a PI, which will look at the outcomes versus a Zymes stents. And I think I shared with Peter as well just now in the symposium that I was wondering whether even Cre8 stent can be randomized against CABG in the diabetic subgroup. But it's true that in common day-to-day practice, what we're doing is that we're trying to put in a stent which we think has the greatest efficacy, especially in the diabetic subgroup. In my mind, efficacy rather than safety in the diabetic subgroup, because diffuse disease, small vessel, recurrent target lesion failure. So I think looking at whether this stent outperforms a stent like Zymes, which is currently the class-leading stent, is a good way forward for us to understand whether this stent really outperforms in this, although niche, but a huge problem for us.
Thanks, John. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.